All right. Looks like we're up and running. We're back on a Monday, Tuesday. Top Trades Live. Back with Matt Insley, Fundamental Matt, joining us. Enrique's out in the desert, so we have Matt here today to talk stocks. We got to get a Fundamental Matt update on the portfolio, by the way. Don't let us forget to do that sometime in this hour. We got a lot to talk about, though. Big picture stuff. This market just keeps going up. It feels like there is no gravity pulling anything down. Stocks are just running here. And yet we're creeping into that period of seasonal weakness, potential seasonal weakness for equities here toward the second half of February. So we'll see what happens. The market was a little janky getting started today on this short trading week. We got to talk crypto. Why is Bitcoin not going up anymore? Why are some other coins going down? I don't know. We'll talk about that. We want to talk about gold. We want to talk about China, the big China breakout, some of these speculative breakouts that just keep on rolling. We got a lot to hit on today. So how are you doing, Matt? What's going on over in your neck of the woods?
I hope everyone at home has blocked the next 4 hours for this call because that's how much stuff we got to talk about, Gunner. Look, behind the scenes, they only let me on this call ever so often. So I gotta make the most out of the calls that I got. The other thing that you forgot to mention, Gunner, in the beginning of the intro, which was great, doing good work here. I want to update. We got the fundamental Matt portfolio. I've got a lot of stocks that are in and out. 13F was last Friday or whatever. We're going to get the Matt version of it. What's in, what's out. We got little stocks. They're writing about it in the chat. I saw BlackSky's in there. So we're going to talk about BlackSky too, because I like
Oh,
that
no.
stock. That wasn't even me. They started it with BlackSky, and that's a good one. If you want to look at some heaters and some little up and comers, that's a good one. So we definitely want to talk a bunch of tickers. We got a bunch of top trades to talk about. I'm excited to be here. Chat's open. I'll be watching that. And Gunnar, you were saying in the green room, we have a very large speculative bid underneath this market.
Yeah, it
Again,
feels
it's not melting up like everything's not just going up like crazy. We might get there, but there's just so much stuff happening underneath. So I don't know if you want to pull up charts or where you want to start there, but let's get into that. And we've got all those topics to cover: Bitcoin, gold, China, US, fundamental portfolio, all sorts of things. So let's rock and roll.
well, yeah. So we were in kind of a weird spot, it feels like, over the past several weeks where everybody just keeps getting more and more bearish. And I've written about this in Top Trades and we've talked about this in chat, but we have a situation where the bears just keep on piling up on paper. Uh, the uh, the sentiment picture is getting a little bearish, and yet we look at the S&P here, and we're pushing toward all-time highs right here. I mean, this looks like a bullish chart to me. And then if we dive below the surface, we see that it's not just the bigger stocks. We have a ton of speculative names. We have all these little speculative sectors and industries that have popped up since the election that kind of got hit with a hard reset back in December around Christmas when we didn't get the melt up continuation that we thought we were going to get. And instead they rested and then they just started blasting higher again. I was on social media over the long weekend and I like to sort of poke around to see what other traders and investors are talking about. And everybody was super bulled up, it felt like. So we have the sentiment surveys coming in with people being bearish. And then the speculative traders are all in their own little world, talking on Wall Street Bets or Twitter or Stock Twits or wherever they happen to be, talking about whatever little stock they're into. The big one that everybody was talking about over the weekend online, it felt like, was Grab, which is the elevator pitch for Grab is um, this is the Asian Uber slash Instacart play right here, and it's kind of a cheapie, around $5. It gaps higher today and has been all over the place. Really, you can see this kind of wide ranging candle that we have here, but it was up as much as like 11-12%, and then it retreated back down to 5, and now it's back in the fives right here. Everybody's playing these into earnings. That's what's also kind of crazy is you have everybody piling into these stocks before earnings. And I guess they're betting on good results, or at least a strong bullish reaction from whatever the results happen to be. So we have names like this going up. We have the quantums. Like if you look at the QTUM ETF right here, look at that. I mean, that's like a perfect consolidation right here that just is getting tighter and tighter. It feels like these are going to start blowing up again. We can go into some of the individual charts like IONQ. This doesn't look as great, but these are the stocks that, went straight up. IONQ went from what, 10 to 50, which you think, after that, you just get death. And yeah, there was a day when it was down like 40%, but this is kind of holding its own right here. I wouldn't jump into this here, but it's impressive that some of these stocks are hanging on here and starting to push higher out of these moves. We talked about this on Friday and a little bit today too. Look at Cathie Wood. Look at ARC Innovation. These are the old tech growth names that were hot in 2020, early 2021, and this is breaking out again. This was 3 big days higher, Wednesday through Friday last week, to post this breakout, and is still green today. I mean, this is a huge base right here that's just starting to break out. These are almost 3-year highs for ARC Innovation. I mean, just insane moves here. And I feel like a lot of this has kind of just been hidden under the surface. Everybody's like pulling back and not so sure about this market right now. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah. When you see charts like QTEM or whatever, and then S&P, those look like they almost had a line directly over them, like a ceiling. When you're looking at charts like that, I'm guessing what you're going to say, but like, does that tell you anything? Or are you waiting for that move? Because it just looks like if they break out of that ceiling, I mean, gosh, those things look like it's just crystal clear where that top line is for either S&P or QTEM.
Yeah, I mean, it does.
QTEM.
It certainly looks like it. And there's no guarantee that it won't like break above that and then like, leak back into that range right there. Yeah, that could happen too. But I mean, you look at the Qs, it's kind of the same deal where, if we zoom in a little bit more here, these are breaking out right here. So I think, it's interesting when we have, and I see Mark has an interesting question in the chat where he's saying it seems like we talk more fundamentals rather than what a chart is telling us. I think it's interesting that when we have a situation where we understand what, not necessarily the fundamentals, but what the overall picture and feeling of the market is right now and the attitudes of investors, when that kind of butts heads with the reality of the charts, I consider that to be very important information right here. When we have folks getting more bearish and yet the charts are getting more bullish.
Yeah. And a lot of it is like the way that I think about it, because I'm very fundamental. We know that we call me fundamental Matt, but I want to know why the market did what it did yesterday or whatever, because no one knows what it's going to do tomorrow. But like saying, oh, the market went up yesterday because of, Trump did blah, or everyone's worried about the dollar, or blah, blah, blah. Like there's extra money on the side, like whatever it is. That's important for saying like what might happen the next day, because that's just a different art. There's all these arts that were stacked, well, science of technicals, right? But then arts that you're trying to stack on top of it.
Yeah.
That's important to me, is finding out why the market is moving day over day. Because if you know that or have a decent idea on it, when that stops, when the music stops on whatever that is, that the market's going to have to find some new narrative, and that might take a little bit of time.
Yeah, and those things ebb and flow just like anything else. But I think more importantly, we're going to play the breakouts regardless. And I've talked about this in chat a lot, where we have all of this noise that comes in, and it's been especially loud lately because I think the market's done a good job of adjusting to Trump, but at the same time, Trump moves at warp speed compared to what had happened over the past 4 years in the previous administration. And the market, that was a big jolt. I think folks said they were ready for it. And then, when the rubber hit the road, they really weren't. And so it created some sort of disconnect there. And that extra noise definitely affected the market in some ways. But when you have a situation where the charts are breaking out, people are chasing breakouts, which I think is important too. If you look at some of these stocks, like this is just an example, but like this is a popular stock. IoT is a popular stock right here. You look at a chart like this, and folks started buying it on this little breakout here, moving it into this gap late last month, let's say. They have bid this thing up into the stratosphere right here. It's incredibly overbought right now. I think this is indicative of the market that we're in right now, where folks are willing to chase. We'll be in markets that are less favorable than this, market conditions that are less favorable than this, where you'll see stocks start to break out and then they'll start to consolidate, or they'll break out a little bit, and then they'll fall back into these ranges. That's not the type of market we're in with stocks like this. The most popular trading stocks, people are buying them at any price. And they're buying them at any price, and then they're buying them again the next day. And nobody has knocked them off their pedestal yet. And so I think that's pretty interesting. And this could trickle into other sectors as well. This could just be a rotation. I don't think IoT is going to go up forever. I don't think I would buy it here at 60 after running from the low 40s. But you can see kind of how where this market's at. And we've talked about this before. We talked about this past couple of weeks, like Meta, it's down today, but Meta was breaking records. It was up 20 straight trading days, which I don't think any mega cap stock has ever done. And it's finally starting to cool off. But we're seeing some constructive rotation here. And yeah, Mark has another good comment. PLTR, I'm going to get to that chart in a minute. This is another great example of folks just chasing stuff up. I mean, great earnings reaction from this stock here. Didn't wait around. Had one day where it was just sort of like, marking time right there. And then, bam, up another 10%. These are just running. And again, I wouldn't buy this here. And Matt, I want to talk to you and get your opinion on PLTR because I know this is
Here we go.
Here. But I look at a chart like this and I say, okay, in the back of my head, I want to be ready for some shenanigans because, like I said, we're in the middle of February. This is when we're going to get some seasonal weakness, usually. And that's a roadmap. That's not a guarantee. But usually the market's going to get a little squishy here heading into the back half of the first quarter. That would be pretty normal seasonal action right there. If we start to see some of this stuff fail and retreat here, I want to see, are we going to see that speculative money rotate into other groups and continue to bid these names up? Or are we going to see everybody pull back and retreat? And then that speculative bid that we're talking about, are we going to see that just get removed and fall out of this market? I want to play stocks that are going up as long as I possibly can. But in the back of my mind right now, I'm like, okay, it might be getting a little kind of crazy under the surface and maybe we need to take a step back. I'm not going to do that till the charts tell me, obviously, but I have that idea in mind. And that's sort of what's dictating like how I feel about the markets right now. Foot's on the gas, but I'm ready for the road to get a little bit bumpy if that is indeed the case.
Your boy Alex Karp was on CNBC this morning.
Yeah.
That's the CEO of Palantir. Again, Palantir's one. This is a good one to put a bet on. We did it with Bitcoin back when it was just like, you just couldn't tell. I think $30 is a good number where you go, will Palantir hit 150 first or will it hit 90 first? And that's an interesting thing to talk about because it's the same move one way or the other. But which one does it hit first? We talked about this earlier, not in the green room, but in the office. I would take 150 because I just think it's going to keep rolling. Where 90 would have to fill that gap. I don't like it as much there. 90 getting a little bit of the gap. I don't know. But
90 wouldn't even come close to, it'd be halfway, I think. So it would be
yeah, but if it touches the gap, that would make me a little hesitant on my 150 first. But if we said that same bet for the whole year, and you go, hey, will it hit 150 by the end of the year? I think I'm definitely on that. I think you just might touch that gap at some point in time, just because.
This is a which comes first bet, though. It's going to.
I know. I'd still take 150.
I'm going to take. I'll take 90. I'll take the other side of that. And I don't say that with any type of like confidence. Like it's definitely going to hit 90 first. I mean, this thing could continue to rip. I mean, I just think that if it breaks 100, then we're going to start to see this gap getting filled. I think that's a reasonable thing to say here. Now, I also think, even though it sounds,
what do you guys, and put it in the comments too, you can just put in like 150 or 90 into the comments, but send into the comments, say, I think 150, I think 90, just so we can see, like, get a feel for it. Are people thinking this thing might retrace a little bit? Or are they thinking we're in a market where things are going higher? So if you can throw it in the comments, we'll just see some 150, some 90s and see what's happening. Holly's in. She said if it's at 90, she's buying it. I like that. That's a combo. That's a combo
makes a lot
answer.
of sense, though. I think if you're a longer term bull of this, then you want to see it start to fill that gap a little bit. You don't want to be buying it up here when it's like severely overbought. I mean, what's the run just from the previous earnings announcement right here, that gap higher? So that was on November 4th. What's the run from here? It's almost 200% in a very short period of time. I don't think that it would be too crazy to say that like I'm going to set a buy order for 80, and then let it do what it's going to do right there, and maybe it gets filled, maybe it doesn't. Um, but I mean that run up is just completely insane. Like I'm not bearish on the stock. That's just it. I mean, you have to kind of separate these ideas. You have to separate the idea of like, like I think this is a great company, and you can think that, that's fine. But the reality is this thing has gone straight up and it's going to need some time to digest this move at some point. And we don't know when that's going to be. What if we have, here's the thought. This is a little mental exercise for you. What if we have a market like we had in early 2024, where Palantir is just the NVIDIA of the market and it just absorbs every single speculative dollar, for several months, and it just keeps on going straight up when people like me are sitting there going like, well, this is going to have to retrace eventually. It's like, yeah, eventually, but people are still buying it right now. I mean, we saw that with NVIDIA when everybody was talking about AI, and it was the sole beneficiary of AI for a solid, 5-6 months. No one was buying anything else but that. What if Palantir does the same thing? What if it started back in November and it's got 3 more months of this left? I don't know.
And what if, I mean, I follow Palantir. I'm finally down. There's one hint at some of the things in my portfolio. I'm down to like 1/10 of my position now because I've just sold as we go higher. It just is what it is. It's kind of my style on trading. And at one point in time, I sold some covered calls against it. That's what got this last earnings bump. That's what kicked me out of a lot of those. But like as a Palantir, I love it. I've traded it. I keep track of it. And we've talked about it on this call like a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. We're like, what does Palantir do? And we came up with an answer that's like, pretty decent for someone being able to buy on a narrative, right? It's like, oh, well, they do AI and they do it for the government and they're surveilling people and they're probably just making a bunch of money off of it, whatever. The way that it could have an NVIDIA moment, like you're saying, Gunnar, what if they start showing legitimate technology or gains or something, or a bigger contract? Oh, Elon talked with Alex Karp and now they're going to do blah. That would send it even higher. We're starting to just see this could be the beginning. Again, I'm not looking. I completely agree with you on like, I'll bet whether it goes to 150 or 90. I'm not buying the stock today. I'm out of it. I've been slowly just whittling shares out of them down to 1/10 position. So I don't know what to do. I'm just holding at 1/10.
Yeah, I mean, and that's entirely possible. Like you said, like I think the bullish story could completely snowball on itself, and that's what happened with NVIDIA. It's the same kind of idea where it's like you said, like all of a sudden, you get these magic words like Elon and like other stuff. Like who knows what could go on with this, and we have to respect that. We have to respect the charts. Obviously, I just look at this and I'm like, okay, this is way overextended. I'm not going to buy it here. I mean, there's a lot of people that are buying it here. I'm not buying it up here at 120. It's just the wrong time for me to do something like that. So what I would look for is, and let me get this shorter term exponential moving average out of the way. Like we're so far extended. This is the 200-day moving average, which is down here at 46 bucks, which is completely insane.
That does put it in perspective.
I mean, it's big time because here's the launch. You can see it's like a rocket ship. You know what I mean? Like it was kind of like, it was on the launch pad right here, and then it really took off right here. But I mean, and there was a question in the chat earlier, like, what's your sell signal? Is it MACD? Is it RSI? No. I'm just looking at price here. Like you could maybe see like a negative divergence with, RSI retreating while price still goes up, and that could sort of give you like a warning signal to maybe get out of the way. But I'm more interested to see like what happens to all these people that bought on this gap up if this comes down and settles in the, in like, let's say we settle between 100 and 110. Is this going to be a situation like we have with Bitcoin where we get in a big choppy range, or are people going to bail out and get scared out of the stock? I think those are the two options. And if it starts eating into this gap right here, then I think it's time to start thinking about, number one, if you're super tactical and you want to play some short-term downside, maybe you could. It probably would be expensive. Or on the other hand, if you think it's a great company, like a lot of people in chat think, set a buy order for somewhere down here in this gap, and wait for moving averages to catch up. And then you have a much better buy. And then you can do like Matt said and say like, okay, like I think we're overextended here, but I think the stock is a $150 stock before the end of the fourth quarter. I think that's a reasonable thing to say about this, and you get it at a better price. And so those are the ways I would think about something like this, because let's just compare it to something like Bitcoin. I know they're two totally different things, but you have the same forces, the same animal spirits at work in something like that. So we have Bitcoin here, and we look at like a big run up. This is kind of similar to Palantir. You go back here to 2023, 2024, where you had a launch, like you see the 200-day where it was kind of milling around it, kind of like Palantir was, where it was kind of, bouncing off of that, not making any big moves. Then you have a launch right here. And then you have the final extension. And Bitcoin isn't going to have any gaps. But at the same time, you have a move from 50 to almost 75 right there. And that it exhausted itself. And then you had to endure months and months of some sideways action. And so this would be the point right here. Like let's say we're like somewhere along in here for PLTR. We're somewhere in this, like the Bitcoin 66s, maybe it goes up to 72. And then you're gonna see like, okay, it starts to weaken. And you're going to be in a situation where maybe it doesn't totally freak people out, and maybe you don't get a complete reset down here, but you get this sideways grind for a while. And that could certainly be the case. And we've seen that before with, countless charts. Go back and look at any stock that's made a really big move like this. You can have long-term winners, go back and look at how Meta behaved in the teens or how Amazon behaved. There are great long-term market winners that go through these cycles of everybody gets really bulled up, the stock goes vertical, and then it needs time. And that's the situation we're in with Bitcoin. That could very well be the situation with the Palantir. And you just have to like study these charts and get used to these ebbs and flows of the market and understand how it all works. Going back to Bitcoin, that's another oddity of the market right now, is that we have these speculative names like our ASTS trade or like the IoT or a bunch of these Rocket Lab or a bunch of these other stocks, App. I think you've talked about App, haven't you, Matt?
I have App. That's in the Minsley portfolio.
Yeah, look at this. This is a very similar stock to Palantir right here, where you have this launch, big launch after the November earnings, and then this thing
App gap.
Yeah,
two app gaps
right there. And I don't know what's the. Let's do the same type of fun price analysis here. Yeah, it's the same chart. It's a 200% move, just like Palantir right here.
Let's get everyone caught up. If you don't know, we got smart people on Top Trades. But in case you don't know what App is, the company is AppLovin. And what do? They're an app company that I believe for the most part, they basically run a bunch of games. So it's like all these little games like Sudokus and word puzzles and all these different things. And the way that they make money is over the last years or so, right? They add advertising it. So you're playing your little Sudoku and it's like, oh, you want to do the next level? You got to wait a second. They play an ad. Then you can go back to doing your crossword or whatever it is. And there's so many people that are on these apps that, and these are the sticky ones. These are the ones you see ads for that are like, play this little weird game or do this thing, and they're addictive. It's all kinds of probably horrible for society, but it is what it is. And they've got ads running on it. So that's what's churning this thing fundamentally.
And for all intents and purposes, it's the same chart as Palantir, which is interesting. And you have this gap higher here, and it doesn't want to stop. It's down 2% today, 3%, big deal. This thing has rocketed higher. People are dumping money into these. And then you go look at Bitcoin, the ultimate speculative trade, or at least it acts like it most of the time, and it's just been chilling. Bitcoin has done nothing. I thought we would get a weekend rally at some point this month, and especially since we just had a 3-day weekend, because Bitcoin, I know this, probably statistically isn't true, but it feels like Bitcoin always likes to rally around a holiday when there's nothing else to bet on, and the degenerates are like, jonesing for like some sort of a trade, and so they'll start buying up crypto. But we had this fake out lower back on the 3rd, where it tested like the low 90s and then ripped. And I was like, okay, there we go. We got a little shakeout. Maybe this will start moving higher again. It hasn't touched those prices since. It went back up to 101, and then it's just sort of leaked lower down here in the 95 range ever since. And this thing is just hanging out right here. So we're in a situation where one of two things are going to happen. And I think it's going to be the second one. You either get scared out or the market wears you out, right? That's the saying. I don't think anybody's scared here. I think people are getting bored. They're getting bored because Bitcoin isn't giving them the big gains that they want, because that's what people expect from it. We have to kind of take the whole crypto fundamental arguments or whatever they are and push them aside and just assume that the herd wants Bitcoin because Bitcoin moves a lot. Okay, that's why people trade it. They trade it because it produces big moves, higher and lower. It's not doing that right now. It's on pause. And so it's wearing people out, and people are going to get bored and they're going to sell out of it and they're going to move on to something else. They moved on to AppLovin,
Yeah.
they moved on to like some of these other hotter trades, whether it's quantum stuff, rocket ships, whatever it happens to be. They're moving on to these other trades, and Bitcoin's just sort of hanging out here. And then you have charts like Ethereum that just don't look good. Like that doesn't look like the Bitcoin chart. Ethereum can't get its act together. And the chart looks like garbage. Solana doesn't look good. Solana looked like it was going to break out and run just a month ago, and now it's breaking down. So I don't like the looks of that. And I don't look at a ton of coins, but I do have a Coinbase account because I'm a simpleton and I don't like to think too much about crypto. And I've noticed that a lot of the also rans are just kind of leaking lower. And it feels like every Monday I wake up and I see a bunch of old overnight Coinbase alerts where it's like, oh, some shitcoin is down 7%. And it's like, and there's like just a laundry list of them that are just going down. So it feels like all of the speculative juice has been sucked out of that market right now. And it's been transferred back into the stock market, which is just kind of, I don't know what to make of that. It's just, I guess it's just the ebb and flow of things, but it's interesting. And it makes me think like, okay, like how much longer can we continually rotate into these things? Are we going to rotate back into crypto once some of those other stocks die down, or are people going to like pull back and kind of sit on the sidelines for a little bit?
Yeah. If you want to hear something scary, go back to the Bitcoin chart.
Go back.
So the scariest part here with Bitcoin, and go a little further out. If you can go like
back.
the beginning, yeah, right about there. So the scariest part is that Bitcoin is trading way more institutional almost. And if you look at it, look at the beginning of like 2024 or maybe the beginning of that channel. Like the reason Bitcoin, so it hits the top end of that channel and
Right
then
here.
Bitcoin starts going down. And the whole reason I believe, right, and this is talking about what we were talking about in the beginning, is like making sense of this chart in retrospect to say, what is Bitcoin trading on? It trades to the lower end of that channel until almost precisely the rate cut in September. So everyone's thinking, oh no. And that was, if you remember early 2024, people were like, oh, the rate cut might come in March. It might come in June. It might come in, and it finally came in September. So it trended down that whole time because it's like, oh man, rate cuts are going to become. And then like it was, again, it's a reverse mentality of how this stuff's working. But then all of a sudden the rate cut hits and the thing skyrockets because inflation becomes a bigger story, I think. And it's people are buying this thing institutionally for an inflation hedge, and then you've got countries buying it, and you've got, Trump talking about a Bitcoin reserve. It's such a weird, and that's why it's decoupled from the S coins, as you would call them. But like, they're not the same. This is institutional. It's similar to gold versus silver and other precious metals. It's like, it's getting very institutional.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think
know.
that's
So Bitcoin seems like a buy here because it's like, do you think inflation's going away? No. Do you think crypto's going to stay? Yes. And then it's kind of sitting in the lower end of the most recent range. Probably buy here.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bitcoin, it's what the magic of Bitcoin is, that it's what you want it to be. If you want it to be an inflation hedge, that's what you can tell yourself it is. If you want it to be a speculation, that's what you can tell yourself it is. If you want it to be the new world currency, you can talk about that. And there's nothing that can, disprove what you're saying, really. You know what I mean? It's a choose your own adventure type of investment for the most part. But I think there's also some truth to the fact that it's a maturing asset now. It's been around for a while. And as things mature, they stabilize in the markets, at least. It's not a secret anymore. Institutional investors are all over it and have been for some time. And I think that that means that it's possible that we don't get the same magnitude of moves eventually out of this that we saw back in the early days of crypto. And that's fairly normal. You're not going to see usually you're not going to see like mega caps move at the same magnitude as some crazy speculative stock. It just doesn't happen. There's too many folks involved. It's too big. It's too unwieldy. It's hard to, push a big rock that size up a steep slope. That's just how it goes. So maybe we're just in a maturing phase for Bitcoin right now, and it doesn't move, as much as it used to. Or maybe not. We'll have to see. But at the same time, I don't think there's too much to get excited about looking at the Bitcoin chart. I think it's fine up here. But the fact that, it really hasn't been able to hold above 100K, and it's been stuck in this sideways range since around Thanksgiving for all intents and purposes. I mean, it did run up a bit to the 106, 107 area here, but it got sold each time it's really done that. And so we're just sort of in a wait and see mode right here, which is interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think that Bitcoin, the one thing it really has going for it is that aside from some fake outs, which I think you can use to your advantage, since it does tend to move, when you get a big false move that, if it breaks out and then starts to retreat, I think you can count on it moving a little bit lower in the days ahead. And the same thing goes for when it posts those big moves lower, like when we saw back in this range right here, and we had these big fake out moves lower, it usually kind of bounced, is that it's usually pretty technically obedient. I feel like there's not a lot that interrupts the technicals when it comes to like a Bitcoin chart. There's no earnings report or anything like that that's going to get in the way. There's some news, but I feel like those halvings or whatever, they really haven't done that much over the past couple of years. It just sort of it runs on those animal spirits, and because of that, I think it's pretty obedient to the charts because those raw emotions are what power Bitcoin higher. And so, you can kind of count on that and count on the charts more so than maybe with stocks. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but that's kind of how I feel about it. But what about Bitcoin in relation to gold right now?
Here we go.
Which one would you rather be in? I think as a trade. I feel like Bitcoin has the ability to move farther, but gold has been just ripping. I mean, we traded the miners close to this breakout right here. But I mean, this thing took out 2790, 2800 and hasn't looked back. And it feels like, it's picking up steam again. And 3000 plus is kind of a foregone conclusion for the yellow metal here. I mean, it's a pretty incredible move. I don't know if I would grab gold here. I would prefer like a silver play, like a silver catch-up type play right here. I know silver kind of got the shake and bake on it last week, but this feels a lot more like a buyable chart than gold to me right now.
You want to hear some inside baseball? If we had paradigm needs, how on ESPN they have that little doo-doo-doo, doo-doo-doo, and like something big just happened. We need a paradigm version of that because that's what I'm going to drop on you now. I just talked to Rickards last week. He's in India, by the way, just like cruising around India. But okay. I talked to him and we connected dots on, the people were talking this was like, 18 months ago, right? De-dollarization and the BRICS are going to come up with their currency. Well, Jim dropped a bombshell this was not a live call. It was just me and him and one other person talking. He was like, like the BRICS already have their currency, by the way. It's gold. Like they are tons of international buyers stepping in. And, we got big players in Russia and China buying gold. And it's a similar story to like what I was kind of saying about Bitcoin, but it's just such institutional. I don't think we've had retail buyers even step in, which gets you to other crazy narratives. Like if anyone's paying attention in the gold space, we got tons of gold bugs in the paradigm world. I'm one of them. If you're paying attention, right? Elon's talking about auditing Fort Knox. Glenn Beck just had something that came out over the weekend or whatever, where he's saying that there's this huge buyers for gold. And again, this is all just me watching social media, so don't hold me on this Glenn Beck story. But he's saying the comics, there's huge gold buyers And they're wondering, this is like conspiracy theory. They're wondering if like the US Treasury is one of the gold buyers because they're like, oh crap, they're gonna audit. We gotta get some gold into Fort Knox real quick before the audit comes. So there's all these weird narratives. But the biggest story that I believe is propelling that chart up and to the right is international and sort of like institutional central bank buyers because gold is money, and those countries that want to get out of the dollar, they're going to gold because it's like Bitcoin's too volatile. Like that's not really a place. Like even isn't El Salvador like getting out of Bitcoin now? I don't know. It
I
just
don't know.
it's too volatile. Whereas gold seems like a decent bet, and it's just been going up and to the right with more people buying it. So I don't think the retail narrative is even there yet. So that there's plenty of room for gold to run if the retail narrative steps up. And again, with Elon, Trump maybe talking about it, with Fort Knox, maybe you get a little bit of retail interest from the
Well, yeah.
US.
Well, talking about the retail narrative, I still don't think we've really seen that big move from the miners yet. Like we've had good trading opportunities, and we booked a quick double on GDX calls, which was nice, but we have not seen, a big ripper in these stocks. I mean, I get it. Like gold miners generally are bad stocks to own. Like, why would you have wanted to own a gold miner over the past decade? But at the same time, like I feel like if these narratives catch up, and if this is a much bigger consolidation here, going back to when gold first tagged that 2K mark back in 2020, this is pandemic trading back here. There's the COVID crash, and then the big run up in gold right there. We're just now back to that for GDX right here, and had a bit of a hard reset here, leading
And
into
gold's what, like back in the pandemic, gold was $1,800. Like
well,
gold
yeah, that's
is
what I'm saying. Like gold
3,000
miners,
now. Yeah, it's crazy.
yeah, people don't like gold miners, and I get it. Like, I mean, I'm not a buy and hold gold miner guy. They're just not great stocks. They're not. It's a
There
tough
are a
business.
couple. We were talking with Ian. I mean, if you look at like I Am Gold, IAG, or Alamos Gold,
Yeah,
AGI, even Barrick, right? Like there's like their charts actually look good
their charts look good as a group.
compared to
Yeah,
GDX. Yeah.
as a group, they're not great. Yeah, so I mean, like you find these charts and they're looking good, but I mean, I feel like we still haven't gotten those. It doesn't feel like back in the day, Matt, during like commodity super cycle times when, these things were just, you could buy one and they would just boom, 300%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They would just rip. We haven't been in that environment in 20 years. So
Yeah.
it would be interesting to see like how this evolves. And I think there could still be some opportunity there if the good vibes for precious metals spread, if we kind of, get back into a market like that. We're definitely not there yet. It's and that was the main thing when I was talking about the GDX trade, earlier this year was we had this breakout, and GDX was looking a little bit better. It undercut its 200-day and started moving higher right here. It was great to get a good trade on right there, but we had this breakout in gold, and everybody was quiet about it. No one was talking about it. I mean, like, and like you said, like Alex Karp was waving his arms around because he's a good showman, he's a good marketer on CNBC earlier. No one's going on CNBC talking about gold right now, are they? I mean, like, when was the last time you walked by the TV out there and you had folks talking about, gold 3,000? You think that would be a bigger story right now, and it's not. And I feel like that's just fuel for the bulls right there, fuel for the fire, is the fact that we're not at a moment like we are, with some of these, with like IoT. We're
Yeah.
not here at this point yet where everybody's like, I got to buy this. I got to pile in. I don't care what the price is.
But it
We're,
fits the narrative of, I don't know. Again, I'm in my own head here, but it's everyone else wants to de-dollarize. The US doesn't. Combine that with the fact that like I'm not de-dollarizing because I'm US, that's what I pay my taxes and yada yada. So I'm not de-dollarizing, and then combine that with the fact that the dollar is strong. Like we might just be in a bubble. Sorry, not a bubble like markets, like in a incubator or something
yeah,
where we can't see it. If you're in Europe right now, gold is screaming higher
yeah,
because the euro sucks. And you put it into euros, it's screaming even more. It's screaming high just with even in dollar terms.
wow,
So we might be in a bubble where, like, God, whatever, incubator where we can't see it because it's the narrative isn't there. The narrative, like, we have dollars, we've got a strong economy, we're buying YOLO IoTs. Meanwhile, everyone else is like, uh-oh, my economy is crashing and our currency sucks. What should I do? That's everywhere other than the US. They have that line. They're like, what do I do? My currency sucks and my economy sucks. You buy
Yeah.
gold because you're about to get hammered.
Yeah.
Like you're just going to lose money over time. So I don't
Yeah,
know. That might be where it is.
and for the record, like that's fine. Like I mean, like like I don't have a problem buying the speculative stuff that's going up here if that's what's going up. But I still have one eye on precious metals and what's happening here. I think there could be some good trades. I think there could be some good silver trades, especially if the market starts slowing down a little bit. And some of the and like IoT starts dropping. And some of these other stocks that everybody's buying, if they start settling down here, and you can see like even as we've been talking, we've been bad mouthing Bitcoin, and it's been slowly leaking lower since we started the call right here. And we're right down here at this, this 94 area, 94 to 95, where buyers have stepped in, recently. If they don't here, like what if, I mean, like I think folks might start getting a little bit worried if we break below 90. And we're not that far away right here. So that's something to watch if the air does continue to come out of this. Right here, but I have no trouble. Like we've been in ASTS and ridden this thing. I mean, look at these breakouts. And again, you have a stock where you have an incredible run up, and let's see what the percentage was on this one when this really started catching. Yeah, you're up 1,000% in just one earnings period, one quarter right here for this stock. And then it starts leaking lower, but it's pretty orderly. And then this thing starts breaking out and people start chasing it again. This is where we got in right along in here, where it started breaking out above 23. And then you get a little bit of give back right here. And then it just starts ripping higher again. It feels like, like we're in the environment where this thing isn't going to stop until it gets into the high 30s. I don't know if it will, but this feels like kind of a halfway point of this rally right here, and folks are still jumping into it. I mean, we have kind of a weak market today, and this thing is still green. It's still up 1% right here. And if it closes up around here and then it gets more pre-market action tomorrow, we could get out at even higher prices.
Where's February 9th on that chart?
Where's
Well, I guess
February?
it'd be the 10th. I guess February 10th. Yeah, just like put it over right there-ish.
Right here. That's this move.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the Monday after the Super Bowl. And the Super Bowl, you got the Starlink commercial.
Yep.
And again, that would be a time if ASTS was a competitor or going to lose while Starlink wins, it would, I think you'd get a downside move. Instead, it got a major upside move. It consolidated a little bit, and now it's back to rolling. So that means, again, if I'm just listening to the price, like this is a legitimate space to cell phone internet stock. And that's what we always said. That was the reason I don't have it anymore, because again, this is what's happening to me in such a bull market. I'm getting called away from things because I'm doing covered calls on some of the positions, and not in a bad way, right? I don't hold things forever. I'm like the worst. That's why I need my third brokerage account that I've not done yet, which I said was my New Year's resolution, because I need one where I can just buy stuff and never look at it again. Because I'm horrible. I like once I hit a certain amount of percentage, I'll start doing cover calls against it. Again, so I made money, but this thing is rolling, and I think the story is still good. So you like it from a chart standpoint. I like it from a fundamental standpoint, because like it must be doing something similar or symbiotic with Starlink. And Starlink is hot, red hot. Elon, Starlink, space internet. Let's go.
I mean, I love to see charts like this and like a very clean breakout. It tried to get its act together here, and I've been watching it since December. I mean, like, every single time it was bumping up against this line, and this line isn't magic. This is just a general area where I feel like it would start catching, and you see the volume coming in here, which was kind of the clue. When it reset to its 200-day, a nice reset after 1,000% plus rally, right? And then you get the big volume off that bouncer there. Then it's time to perk your ears up and say, okay, is this really going to break and run? And it did. The story is secondary, but it's nice when you have a clean elevator pitch, because that helps people grab onto the stock. I wasn't trying to make a joke there, but like that whole grab play, it's Uber of Asia. Okay, done. You know what I mean? Everybody understands what that means and what that is. What is this? Space 5G or whatever?
Yep.
Satellite 5G, done. Easy. Easy pitch, easy to remember, sounds futuristic, tech, exciting, number go up. That's a good combination right there for a trade. And someone mentioned in the chat, is this a good segue for BlackSky? to talk about that because that's a company I'm not really that familiar with.
Here
What's
we go.
what's the ticker? Is it
BKSY.
BKSY? Okay.
It's like Banksy.
Banksy, yeah.
It's like Banksy the artist, but then it's also BlackSky. So it's
Now, see,
double.
why would you want to buy this? It's only up 20% today. Is that enough?
I should have. Anyway, let's. This is the other thing. I should just run out into the office right now and grab Chris Cimarelli because that man knows tons about BlackSky. I just again, I'm early on this one, but I'm glad that people are writing on it in the chat before I even said it because it's not like I'm bringing this one to the table. That people already know that this thing's happening. This is BlackRock with what surveillance tech and some other stuff. So it's like it's an interesting government money, surveillance, probably some AI involved, whatever.
Big
Play.
base, big base breakout too.
Giant base.
Yeah, I mean, like the when you told me that, like I immediately said, oh, it's baby Palantir. So there you go.
Yep.
That's your pitch for something like this, and it's got a cool name. Black
Yeah.
Sky's a very cool name. I wish the ticker was better, but
It's one. Me and Cimarelli did the math. It's 1/500th Palantir's market cap right now. And BlackRock just increased their holdings by 85%. I'm literally just saying the lines that Cimarelli said. So none of this is I'm not the smart one. I just read all the stuff we do at Paradigm, and luckily I've got Gunnar and Cimarelli in the office today. Like, so we got a lot of firepower. But that's Cimarelli, like he's in Microcap Millionaire is the letter that he's an analyst for, and he's great in the altitude space. And he's on this stock and it's looking good. It's a microcap, 500 million market cap, and it's got a lot of the story that you want for it to run on a narrative.
And it's got earnings coming up. When are earnings? March
next
6th?
week.
So you got time.
Oh no, that's not even next week. Yeah, so you got even more time.
Got a couple weeks here. It's a hell of a chart. I know there's a split in here, but I mean this thing. This is one of those ones, and again, like I don't get too bogged down in fundamentals. Obviously, I like to know the story of what I'm buying for the most part. But this is one of those stories that can captivate people, and their imaginations can run, and that's the type of stock that really is catching and running these days. So I feel like it's a good niche to be in right there. Just a technologically driven, easy to maybe not easy to understand, but easy to conceptualize and to, like you said, like baby Palantir. You could easily communicate this to your neighbor across the fence and be like, hey, this is the next Palantir. This is the stock you want to be in.
Yeah.
And I think those sticky stories mean a lot when we're in environments like this, when stuff is running, because people want to know, like, yes, they want stocks to go up, but at the same time, they want stocks to go up where they can say, I own this and this does X, Y, Z. And that's what they want to be in. I think ASTS fits the bill. I think Rocket Lab fits that bill. Maybe less so with the name like App, because I think that's kind of a weird spot to be in, but that thing's going straight up. So that's another one. But yeah, I think stuff like that definitely matters in certain markets. It can work against you, but in a market like this, I think it's working for you. And it makes the story even better. It makes it more likely that this thing's gonna continue to push. I mean, it's a really nice breakout today. And again, this is on, I think this is on the same kind of frequency as something like Grab, where everybody gets bulled up on it over the long weekend, and then they just have to buy it, they just are snagging shares left and right on this thing.
Yeah, and if we've got speculative money underneath, like these are the kind of stocks, like you're saying, that the narrative can catch on to, and they can start moving, because that's all ASTS was, right? Like ASTS was a narrative stock. Again, they've got a lot going for them. They've got real money coming in the door. Same thing with this company. I mean, they've got BlackRock money coming in, whether they're making money as a company or not, who knows? But
yeah, and don't misunderstand me when I say this, but like, I think the story matters to a point in these. But again, when I'm trading something like this, I'm not buying it to own it. And again, this is not a derogatory statement against BlackSky, because I don't know fundamentally much about it. But I look at a stock like this and I think, when am I going to buy it? When am I going to sell it? And that's just how I'm wired. And it's how we work things, over at the trading desk. This could be a good long-term hold. I don't have an opinion about that. I'm thinking more along the lines of, okay, like if I was looking to trade this, like the areas I would have wanted to get into would be like these big bars, like when it broke above 1250, and then today when it started breaking above, 1850. And I don't know how easy it would have been to get in. And I don't know how quickly those moved. I don't have the 5 minute chart pulled up or anything like that. But that's the way I look at these. And I look at these as quick hits, these quick hit moves right here. They could be great longer term plays, maybe for a smaller position size because they're going to get volatile. But at the same time, like I'm looking at these purely as breakouts.
Yeah.
Swing them while you can, and then move on to the next one because in this market, we're getting these opportunities pop up.
We should
And
give Mark a contract. I'll read it out. Mark put in like what BlackSky does. It says real-time imaging from space using AI analytics, low orbit, ultra high resolution. They got 789 million in government contracts with NASA, bunch of stuff. So it's basically military, space military. And you get back to some fundamentals, right? NASA really doesn't do anything anymore. The public companies are doing it. So this is a public company. You can buy them, and they're the one putting the satellites up that the military is going to use. So it's a pretty interesting narrative there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
and you can't argue with the chart.
yeah. Let's see. Is there anything else
Well,
that we want to cover?
earlier. We had somebody earlier ask about FXI and China.
Yeah, let's do that real quick because China's been, it's been moving.
It's been moved. Okay. So for the record, I like China. I want to buy Chinese stocks. I want to buy them at the right time. They have been kind of ripping here. And I think that maybe some of them could be kind of hold your nose and buy some shares, for the months ahead. But I'm looking for a more tactical entry into the China names because they've just been ripping straight up, and we know how they kind of act. I mean, I'm not saying this is going to happen again, but if we go back and we look at this first initial move, back in the fall of last year, back in September, October, when FXI really ripped, and then it kind of needed to reset, and now it's going again. I would kind of like to see it chill out a little bit before I dive into it. And this is a theme you're going to notice in the last 8 to 10 minutes of this call right here, is that I have a lot of stuff on my list. We've talked about like IoT, and we've seen the results with like ASTS trade, but I have a lot of stuff on my list right now where I'm like, ooh, I like the looks of that, but I need to wait for a real entry point and not chase at these levels. Because if you look at something like Alibaba, that's been in the news, this thing has just absolutely exploded. It would have been a great buy right here around 100. Okay. Now that it's at 127, it's almost 30% higher right here. This needs to settle, and it needs to come back down here and maybe retest, the 115s or something like that before it sets back up again. And plus, it also has earnings coming up. And this is one of those stocks where I don't want to step in front of earnings for sure on some Chinese name like Alibaba. So while I like the initial move, and I think this is a huge move, and it's very constructive, probably longer term for the stock, this is not something I want to buy up here in the nosebleeds. I think that this is going to set up, and it's going to be a good trader, and it's going to give lots of opportunities as the year progresses. I think China is going to continue to boom, and there's going to be good trades amongst these stocks. I just don't want to be reaching up here, especially with earnings coming up. And aside from China, I feel that way about a lot of other stocks too. There's a lot of other stuff that's setting up out there that has, maybe you have a stock that's posted like a big double-digit move off of earnings. That could be a good post-earnings drifter. We're in the season right now where we can find these stocks that post good earnings and have a big gap higher, and then start just stair-stepping without looking back, after they consolidate a little bit. I think those are some of the names we want to be in post-earnings season. We've talked about ARK, and it's powerful breakout, and a lot of these components right here are starting to look pretty good. I think, Matt, I think I talked with you about this maybe last week, but CRISPR, that's an interesting one right here, where we have just crappy underperformance from this stock. No one wanted it. It comes down here and retests its October 2023 lows. And you remember how bad sentiment is back here. This was Las Vegas 2023 paradigm. Everybody bearish.
Yep.
It was the low right here before the 2024 Ripper. Went all the way back down here to retest these levels. Post good earnings reaction right here. And we got bam, 10% move higher, follows it up with another big candle right here. And then today up again. Now it's up in here in this area, back above its 200-day. Let this thing chill out a little bit here in the 50s, and I think it's going to be an awesome trade. And it could blast higher right here.
Yeah. And if you need stories
Massive,
for any of these, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
massive reversal in the making here, I think. And now that earnings are behind it, I mean, it could have a nice drift higher after that earnings report. It's not something I want to buy right now because I think it needs to chill a little bit, maybe. But if we're still in an environment where the market is holding up and this thing can consolidate and then break out above, the mid 50s right here, I think this could be a banger trade that goes from 55 to 75, and possibly higher. So you could look at this one of two ways. You could say, okay, I'm with Greg and I want to wait for a better swing trading setup, let it retest, down here at the $50 range, let it bleed off some of that excess enthusiasm right there, set back up for another leg higher, or maybe start a small position, hold your nose and buy, right around here if you're more longer term minded, because I think, we're starting to see these big reversals start to take place. And a lot of these names, I know a lot of Enrique's echo trades, have started to extend. A lot of the stocks that looked so bad and that fell so far behind after the 2022 bear market, just because they couldn't get their footing, a lot of them are starting to look good and they're starting to set back up again. And they could be the really big trades of this year. And those are the ones we want to be following. Maybe not buy them right now, but just, put them on your list and keep an eye on them. Because this is one of those things where I'm like, okay, ARC breaking out, good earnings from CRISPR coming off those lows. If it could just maintain right here and consolidate, in an orderly fashion, I think this thing could blast off again. So that's the kind of stuff I've been looking at.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's anything biotech's got to start. I think it's starting to all turn around too. Like CRISPR, it's like gene editing or whatever. I don't know if it has anything to do with RFK, getting confirmed and stuff like that. But, it can all be there. Like we're in a new America now. You got Trump, Elon, RFK Jr., all sorts of things happening. Let's see. I've got the last thing that I got to do because we promised it, and I don't want to. We got to make sure I give everyone an update on what I'm in and what I'm not in.
Yeah, we got a fundamental mat update. Yeah.
Yeah, fundamental mat update. Here we go. And this is like my total. This is like my main big. I have two brokerage accounts. I need the third one for this the buy and hold forever and never look at it. But the big positions, and they're not anything aggressive. It's just the normal full size positions, like AppLovin. So app. I followed Enrique into Cintas, which is the uniform company. I think I'm up 8-10% on that. CTAS.
Mm-hmm.
RXRX is Recursion. That's one of the NVIDIA holdings that didn't get blasted. Like SoundHound got blasted because NVIDIA sold it. RXRX is still being held.
Oh yeah, look at that. That's another great base. Seeing all
Yeah.
these little biotech bases here. It's interesting.
Yeah. So, and then I bought Wolf. I don't know if I'm going to hold it long. This one, I'm just being honest. It's in my portfolio
Wolf
right
with a U or with an O?
with a U. Because I was like, I was on the same page as you. I was like, I think Bitcoin's just going to bounce here. It's going to get something, and then it didn't really do anything. So now that one's in there, I might sell pretty quick. Who knows? And then the other ones that I got that were like covered call slash, I've just been selling on them. I still have a tiny position in Palantir and a tiny position in Fannie Mae, which is FNMA.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing crazy. And the rest of the portfolio, it's in like bonds and cash. So I'm probably 60% at least. I was a week ago, I was like 80% bonds and cash. Now I'm 60% because I added RXRX and Wolf. But we'll see. That's where it is right now. Nothing too crazy. But I do like I do feel what you're saying, Gunnar, that the speculative, there's some money underneath this market.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, the euphoria is out there. And this will bring me to my one last thing. I'll say one shocking thing at the end of the call just to wrap it up from my end. But the euphoria is there, right? Everyone, and maybe it's only half the country or what, more than half that voted for Trump or whatever, but right, like they were like, oh, I'm going to vote for Trump. And then what they've seen since November, and then since January 20th is nothing short of just like amazing for them, right? They're like, oh my gosh, we're cutting government debt, we're solving wars. Like Trump's there, he's making deals, like immigration is fixed. It's
Yeah.
like euphoria unlike you've ever seen. The only thing that I say, and I can't even say this too loud or too specifically because it's going to make me seem like a real conspiracy tin hat, like put me on government radar type thing. But if something were to happen to Trump, that would be the giant asymmetric trade of a lifetime. That right now, like, right, everything is so euphoric, and it's all because of Trump. Like, he won, everything's heading in this direction. Like, I don't know what would happen. Again, it could just be something where it's like his policy starts failing, or some narrative starts, or something, or like a health scare.
Yeah.
Like man, that would be just insane on a trade level. And again, who knows, but that's just one thing that I keep an eye on because I think the market right now is trading on that. I think they're happy that like America's winning, all these things are going. Elon's there, we got tech, we got Trump, we got deals, we got all this stuff. You know, if that story somehow ends or rolls over,
Right.
so all
Well, I
right,
think
Gunnar,
eventually, I mean,
you
like,
get the last. Give us some top trades. What's the last word here? You got all sorts of we got a lot of stuff to look at. I mean, the market is interesting.
well, a couple thoughts. So you mentioned Wolf, and I noticed last week that there was some smatterings of buying in some of the crypto miners, which was interesting to me since Bitcoin wasn't doing anything, and yet like, and I don't know what it's looking like today, probably down, but like, look, you had people buying Riot. Riot was up 10% on Thursday, and it reports earnings on Monday of next week, and people are buying this, which is like, what are we doing here? Like, is there something we don't know about? Why are people accumulating the stock right now? Because the crypto miners haven't looked good. They have not looked good at all, and they kind of fell behind Bitcoin because it feels like Bitcoin was taking all of the crypto money, and no one was in the Mars anymore. We quit trading that one because it just
Dud,
wasn't the trading stock that it used to be. And then there was like CLSK, which was like the new one.
dud.
And look at that. It
And
still
now I'm in Wolf. See, I wanted to get Bitcoin access, and I bought Wolf.
and you bought Wolf and it didn't do anything for you. Exactly.
Dud,
And then there's Hut. That's another
dud.
one.
They're all
Yeah,
dud.
Hut, which doesn't really do anything. So it'll be interesting to see. Like, I think you have you have situations in crypto where the tail kind of wags the dog sometimes, where you have people that all of a sudden you notice that there's like some rumblings of buying in the crypto miners, and that kind of leads a Bitcoin rally. So I kind of was perking my ears up when Riot was going up, but that might just be a one-off thing that happened last week. I'm not sure. Maybe we have something similar with like MSTR, since this is kind of a Bitcoin proxy. I mean, I think this
Ooh.
this chart looks kind of interesting here. Um, you know, would this give us some clues that something was going to be going on positive with crypto? So I feel like that's you know kind of worth watching heading forward. If we get any type of like of odd action either in crypto itself or in like the crypto adjacent type stocks, maybe that's our cue. Like if this starts breaking down, then maybe Bitcoin's next. I don't know, or maybe the opposite. But yeah, they just haven't looked good. And so like it's just more of a situation where I'm just sort of like, we'll see what happens with those. Meanwhile, like I got my eyes peeled on, what's going to happen with our ASTS trade. Are we going to see, AI perk up? I know this one's been a disappointment for us since I don't think the sound news helped. I think that like a lot of the also ran AI stocks got hit right there. I mean,
Yeah.
this doesn't look terrible. Like I was looking more for a similar breakout to ASTS. I was like, well, if these are going to start to move, then we're going to see it move, and it's kind of retreated back down here. Out of this like sloppy like reset. I don't know if you really want to call this consolidation. It's more like a boom and then a reset right there. But this needs to get moving now because it's got earnings next week. So it's a now or never type play. And if it fizzles, so be it. And then we'll just take whatever we have left off the table and move on to something else. Um, but looking at the plays that are more like ASTS, this one's hanging in there today. Can it extend from here? Can we book like 300, 400, 500% on this on the second half of those calls. I think we're around 300-ish% right now. That would be great. And can we find more of these that offer these really good entry points? Because that's what it comes down to. You want to buy at a good entry point here where you can, do what we did and sell half on the big thrust, and then we can wait out big, it doesn't look like a big one here, but that was a pretty big reset when it's down 8 and then, down another 3 the next day. That's rough going if you're chasing. But if you get in at the right time, as they really start accelerating, then you have the wiggle room where you can sell half or more on something like that, and then let the other half ride without losing much sleep over it, and you're not doing stuff like buying IoT when it's up here in the nosebleeds. So we'll see how these stocks act. We'll see if people continue to chase this week. If they do, that's great. If not, then we have other things we can look at. We have, maybe we'll have a silver catch-up trade. Maybe energy stocks will catch and move higher. I know that Occidental reports this afternoon, so we'll see how those look. We have our China plays we need to watch. Enrique's echo trade ideas, a lot of those big bases, a lot of those are kind of, coming to a point where it's like, okay, are these going to go? I've mentioned Peloton before. That's something I'm watching right here. I own a few shares of this that I bought late last year, as maybe this could be a big stock, a big comeback name, or maybe a buyout bait or something like that in 2025. But we see a big base forming here. We had a kind of a preliminary breakout of this back in October, and now it's kind of like churning just below $10. It'll be very interesting to see what happens if this thing can break and hold 10. It had a good reaction to so-so earnings right there, so that's good to see. Can this continue to drift higher? If this breaks 10 and starts to run, I mean, it could go 10 to 15 in a heartbeat. It's just that kind of name. These forgotten trades. I know this one was a pandemic darling, but like these can be really good trading stocks, and they can do really well regardless of what happens at the major averages. So we'll see where we end up. We'll see how the S&P and the NASDAQ look here. But I mean, despite all of
thing,
look at it. I mean, look at it. It feels like higher, for the time being. So we have kind of, these two ideas we can hold simultaneous in our head, where seasonal weakness is coming up. We've had these speculative runners, but look at the charts. It feels like this is going to continue for a little while. It feels like there's still a lot of strength out there. So I'm not running around with my hair on fire. I don't feel scared. I'm going to take what I can get from this market and try to find some more plays like ASTS and, book these gains while we can and enjoy this type of environment while we can, and then prepare ourselves for maybe a little bit of a reset. Nothing wrong with that.
Very well said. All right, everyone. The good part is chat's open. It's going to stay open. Gunner's in there every morning. You guys have a lot of things to look at, and all the stocks that he's been talking about today, and some of the rotation plays in different areas where there's speculative money. He's going to be covering that for you at the trading desk. And I have a feeling next Tuesday is going to be a pretty big top trades call, by the way, because it will be a day before some little company has earnings. I think it's called NVIDIA. Did I say NVIDIA or NVIDIA? I don't know. It could be one or the other, but that's going to be when it was like they have like whenever their earnings are, it's like the Super Bowl. Everyone's like, there's going to be like watch parties. So that's going to be a very interesting one next week, and Top Trades will cover it. So Gunner, thanks for everything. Everybody in the chat, we appreciate all the comments and helping us out on topics and giving us some support on fact checks and whatnot. So we'll see you next time on Top Trades. Gunner, thanks, dude.
Yeah. See you later, Matt. Thanks for joining us today.
See y'all.